Good evening. This is Gloria Taylor Brown, and you are on A Gathering of Priestesses. This is the 26th edition. And with us tonight are my co-hosts, Catherine Ravenwood, and an evolutionary astrologer from North Vancouver, Rose Marcus. And I was just telling Rose that I've been following her advice for about 10 or 12 years now. I get her monthly email, and I always read it, and then I always read Raven's to her. And Raven's been following her for a number of years as well. So we're delighted to meet in virtual person. I've always wanted to go up and take one of your courses, and it's just never worked out because about the time I found you was about the time I moved down here to California, and it's kind of hard whenever you're down here to go to Vancouver. It's not hard when you're in Seattle, but
anyway. I'll come to California sometime.
Oh, good. You let me know when you're coming. I'd be happy to come and see you. So we begin each and every one of these shows with a question, and you can answer this in either direction, whichever works for you, as to what drew you onto the path of the priestess. And if you don't want to use that term, what drew you onto the path of the evolutionary astrologer?
Well, I have to say that I think that I'm very fortunate because my life path is really directed by the very strong hand of destiny. And so my life path has really been cut out for me, and I think I recognize that as a very young child. Evolutionary astrology in particular is a specialty branch. It deals with the progress of the soul, which we can measure through the birth chart, and it's a very profound study. That material, the pioneering work of Jeffrey Wolf Green, I met Jeffrey and met up with this body of work well into my astrological studies. It wasn't the first thing that I ran across, but when I did run across it, I had been studying for many years. I came into the study of astrology at the tender age of 16 and always had a fascination with it. The study of evolutionary astrology, as I said, came to me many, many years after I had studied tremendously a variety of different branches of astrology. And when the evolutionary astrology piece came to me, it grabbed my heart, it grabbed my soul, and I've never looked back since.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about what evolutionary astrology is, or how it is different from other astrology that it was so heart-grabbing?
Well, you know, it really is the depth that is given to the archetypical information, each planetary signature in the chart. The study of evolutionary astrology took that information, you know, Mercury, the planet Mercury has certain characteristics, the sign of Virgo has certain characteristics, and so on. You know, there's some very standard information in astrology, but the evolutionary piece took that a deeper level. The evolutionary astrology that Jeffrey taught had a very specific methodology in which to get into the chart. We start with Pluto to look at the bottom line, soul desires and needs. Pluto is a slow mover around our horoscope. It references the collective, so we have the generational pole, and then we have how that's specifically set up for you in your own chart. And from there, we look at the desires within the soul itself. The soul has duality within it. It has conflicting desires within it. One, as we say, is to return to source, and that is the desire for unity, oneness, and wholeness. The other desire that the soul has is for separation. The separation impulse corresponds to the development of I amness in terms of separateness consciousness. I always say to know thyself as creator, later on to merge with our larger wholes. All of this is, the work that I do with evolutionary astrology. A chart, a natal chart, is a blueprint. And it contains within it, astrology is a beautiful, beautiful science. It's very logical, very, very logical, and also very, very complex. And within each one of the symbols within the chart, there's multi-dimensional information. The chart is a record of all that you have been. And it is also a record of what you intend for your evolutionary journey, for your evolutionary growth. Within that, we look at the chart and we can see where you have come from, where the intention is for your evolutionary forward, and how that is all being integrated into the here and now, past, present, and future intertwined. Yes? Okay. So that
when you say that it shows where you have come from, do you mean it shows where you have come from in this life, or it shows where you have come from in past lives?
In past lives, and what this is an accumulation of information. And there have been times when people have questioned that. We can look at the chart and we can talk about specific dynamics, and we can talk about specific dilemmas. Security patterns, behavior patterns. A lot of these different things. But the intention of evolutionary astrology is not. Absolutely not. To go back there and say, in 1200, AD, you were in Greece and you were a slave and you did A, B, and C. It isn't to be that specific. Now, there are times when we can, and certain people who have talent for doing such things can go back and extract that. We can experience that ourselves through things like regression therapy. We can pull up these, there are many different methods, but it isn't really the intention of evolutionary astrology to be so, what's the word I'm looking for, sensational? It's not about that. It is, what is the complex that needs to be healed? What are the dynamics that you're working with? What are the repeating patterns of your life that you are maybe getting tripped up on, and so on. These are the kinds of things this is more of the information that we're looking for in the chart.
Fascinating. I've studied astrology since I was a teenager as well. And back then, I had to sit there and do the math by hand, and sometimes I wonder how accurate I was. But I had my own ephemeris and astrology books, and I loved understanding where they came from. And whenever I experienced astrology through Jungian studies, was whenever my mind just took off. It's like, oh, it encompasses everything.
Right.
And I believe, as I have read somewhere, that you've had some Jungian training as well in the past.
I haven't had Jungian training, but I will say that Jungian philosophy fits very well with evolutionary astrology. I actually have to say that I discovered Jung after I discovered Jeffrey Wolf Green. And when I did that, I found that the information was extremely familiar to me. Yeah.
I actually discovered you through the Jung Society in Seattle, so that's why I probably thought that the Jungian part there.
Well, it's a very complementary study, very complementary. If you are a Jungian psychologist or Jungian therapist, then you would grab the evolutionary astrology and absolutely love it. So absolutely.
Now, I noticed that you also have a tarot side to you as well. And
yes.
So do you have any way that you combine your astrology and your tarot?
I don't. I can, but I don't because, and I have clairvoyant ability, actually clairsentient, clairaudient, the full capacities. But I don't combine them because both modalities are very full and stand alone on their own. And I feel that if I combine them, I am cheating one modality or the other.
Okay.
So I prefer to leave them separate. However, intuition plays a large role in the interpretation of a chart. And the visions that I have when I do a tarot reading, when I do my clairvoyant work, a lot of that is symbolism that I draw from the archetypical information of astrology and so many other things. So because that's my training and background, the information that I receive psychically or clairvoyantly comes from all these studies.
So, you know, I know that you've studied a number of different modalities, and then the evolutionary astrology is obviously the primary place where your heart is. And as you have studied these, as these have deepened in wisdom and knowledge for you, how would you say that they have informed your life path? I mean, in other words, do you take your own advice?
I try to take my own advice, if I am honest about that, yes. I do allow astrology to guide me. It is the reason that I came into astrology as a very young person, wanting to understand the parameters of who I was and what life was about and where life was going. I always say, you know, I lived close to the riverfront, and because I lived close to the riverfront, I knew my sense of direction, right? And I always said that so long as you know where the shoreline is, you can know where you are. And so astrology always gave that to me, you know, to be able to understand the cycles. There are cycles when it's time to go. There are cycles when it's time to pause. There are cycles that are challenging, you know, especially with some of the more challenging cycles, to know that that you have that particular cycle going on for you, and that it has a beginning, a middle, and an end to it. And I think that sometimes that can be incredibly helpful when you are particularly challenged, right?
I have someone who's particularly challenged here is asking the question. She's wanting to know about tomorrow's full moon eclipse. Any advice on how to navigate what are manifesting as very destabilizing currents? She says, I've been feeling it for a couple of days in advance and have had an extremely rough day today, feeling it viscerally and unfortunately having an adverse effect on me at work. She says she told she has an eclipse is hitting my Chiron in the second house. I am more worried about the Uranus-Pluto and Venus opposing Pluto. Ugh, what a mess. So anyway, she's looking for directed advice.
Well, you know, that's a lot of information for me to keep in the air, but let me say that, you know, it is a lunar eclipse in Aries. And today was particularly stressful because the sun, which, you know, will be the eclipse sun tomorrow, or tonight actually, today it opposed Uranus, and let me just look at my calendar here. That was about 2 o'clock this afternoon Pacific time. So today was an edgy day, and I had actually written this in my column to say that the lunar eclipse action would probably be Tuesday, and so if this high stress. Now the reason for that is because the transiting moon, which is in Aries, and the Aries piece about that is about me, you know, and my needs. We have a full moon, a lunar eclipse, bringing up the Aries Libra bit. What I need from myself and how that's competing with my need to interface with you. So this polarizes what I need from myself, what I need from you, how I can show up for me and how I can show up for you, or show up for we, I should say. These are competing and conflicting, but they can also be complementing. So both of those are in action right now. Now, just before the moon, and that will be in the middle of the night, but an hour before the eclipse takes place, the moon will conjunct Uranus. And it's already aspecting this right now. So Uranus is, yes, it's destabilizing. It's a thunderbolt. It is electric energy. The vibrations are coming in from all over. We're being bombarded with all that energy. Absolutely. And along with that, so that's erratic. And the point with that is that it is not controllable energy. So don't try to control it. Try to allow it instead. And you know, being that I have a very strong Uranian signature in my chart, I know those times when I felt you know, the lunacy during a full moon. I'm actually a full moon baby, so you know, I know this transit of feeling that competing energy and feeling so intense. I remember times when I was younger where I would actually go jog, and even doing the jogging didn't get the energy out of the system. You know, it's an overload. I think the thing is to recognize that that overload will pass, and in the moment you may not have the ability to control or to act. So why don't you suspend? Why don't you stay on pause for a moment? You know, part of the Aries dynamic is the immediacy of the moment, and in the immediacy of the moment, you know, instinct and you know, and jumping into something, you know, sometimes that works out. But one of the biggest things for an Aries energy is to stand still, hold, you know, count to 10. I had to learn to do this. I happen to be an Aries. I had to learn to actually do this, you know, because the compelling, overwhelming dynamic of wanting to act, but that action may be poorly timed if it is not coming from a place of response.
Yeah. Well, right? I am a Taurus with Aries rising and a Leo moon. And I frequently tend to act. You know, my basic modality is ready, fire, aim. So,
yes.
So I understand where you're coming from with that. And go ahead.
Yeah, and so you know, so to recognize that it's all systems on blow, and nothing can be perhaps completed in the moment, right? You know, so if there is the impulse to act, you might want to ask yourself the next question: what is the intention behind that action, and what are the potential results of that, right? Now, along with this eclipse, is very very important to note is that this is a very special eclipse because there is a grand trine of fire set up with it. And that is Uranus. First of all, Uranus is kicking things off. So that is Uranus in Aries. It's like a double statement of, you know, the unexpected, right? You know, and so forth. So we've got in the moment and in the moment kind of double. You know, it is a fired up moment. And that's for innovation, and it's for out of the box anything, you know. So it's for trying something. The grand trine in fire, it has the three planets are Jupiter in the sign of Leo, Mars in the sign of Sagittarius, and Uranus in the sign of Aries. So that is an amazing amount of firepower to put to work. The piece of that is that is something that we are already, you know, the piece of it is to recognize that that is not separate from you or outside of you, but that you have it right this very moment. You have that contained within you. So to direct it towards some kind of creative challenge or some kind of creative instinct of the moment will be the right thing to do with it. All right. So again, I do think that this is a brilliant lunar eclipse for some affirming or for some intention setting, because the potency of this eclipse is very dynamic. Now, I have to say this, and I don't mean to give too much astrology away. I don't want to be overly technical, but maybe my listeners here today, those joining me, are...
They seem to be very technical based on the question.
The sun in Libra is the synthesis point. It's the key. We have a grand trine in fire, and we have this full moon, which is an opposition. The sun's position is the kite position of this fire trine. Now, trines are sometimes, I want to say, overrated in astrology. You say, oh, you have a grand trine, oh, you're lucky you, you know. And you can say, well, great, it's not doing me very much good. It just seems to be, I'm just rolling along with it. A fire trine or a trine brings ease. It facilitates. It says all of that planetary energy is working well together. Okay. And so, each one is facilitating. So, that, we can draw from Jupiter, can draw from Uranus, Mars can draw from Uranus or Jupiter, and so on. They're kind of sharing, they're pooling and sharing resources right now. But they're a closed circuit, so we need something to stimulate that. And it's the sun in Libra that's doing the stimulating on that. So Libra, sun in Libra is about becoming conscious of co-creative, right? Libra is about becoming conscious of the balance, of the equalizing factor in whatever it is that you are facing right at the moment. Where is your equilibrium? Where is the balance? Where is the ability here and now to find your even keel? That's what, all this energy is asking you for. Libra is an archetype of what it is that has value and meaning. And in this case, we're looking at relationship, sun in Libra. What relationship? Well, primarily my relationship to me, right? That's what this fire trine is about. What am I creating? What am I projecting and creating here? A full moon is an illumination chapter. When we have a full moon, we have the moon reflecting the maximum light from the sun. So what we have here is this moon in Aries is reflecting the consciousness of the sun. The sun in Libra is looking to co-create, looking to re-establish harmony, balance, equilibrium, and these kinds of pieces. So in order to re-establish all of that, we have to become aware of what it is that is out of balance, right? We always say with Libra, the archetype of Libra in terms of evolutionary astrology is the archetype of imbalance seeking balance, right? So we start from the extreme and we work our way back from there. Do you see?
Yeah.
So, and Venus happens to be, sorry, I have to turn my, Venus is in the sign of Libra right now, and adding to that as well, too, So this is the contrast of what it is that I am projecting are my needs, my projected expectations for being here now, in any way, shape, or form that I am. And so this is for me to become more conscious of my projected expectations. Am I getting what I expected by taking this route or by being here now? Because a lot of it is, we're feeling bombarded because we don't feel that we are taking any action. We feel that we're being put upon, right? Yeah.
Sometimes it feels like you're standing in the middle of a tornado or a hurricane, and the question is, what can I do that will make any difference at all? You listen to the news, and you have the Ebola virus and the typhoon and the this and the that, and oh my God, the politics in the U.S. You've got so much going on, and each one of us who are on this show, we're here because we believe that we can help effect peace on Earth in some way. I mean, I'm not saying that in the, I'm going to make everybody do what I want them to do. Although, you know what? It would be much better if they did. I did say I am a Taurus with Aries rising. But it is necessary, you know, that we look at this issue around, you know, how am I in the world? And how much of it is what I can affect, and how much of it is what's affecting me? So with astrology, a lot of people see astrology as kind of the planets picking on them.
Right.
You know, it's like, oh, well, I can't do anything about that because I'm a Scorpio. So, you know, I'm always going to sting you with my tail, or I'm always going to keep secrets, or whatever it is that person believes Scorpio is. And, you know, I've run into this several times where people use astrology as a, like a crutch. You know, it's like, well, I can't possibly change. After all, I'm a Cancer, or I'm a this, or I'm a that. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But it becomes something that it's like they're saying, well, this is overlaid on top of me, and I have no control over it. And that is one thing I have always had problems with, because I believe that astrology is an indicator of where you can go and what you can do. It is not a force field that forces you into something that you need to, you know, that you have to do this thing. And how do you feel about that?
Well, you know, this is quite true, but, you know, we are being bombarded, and, you know, and life is spinning out of control, and I don't know how much effectiveness I have to be able to control the economy or the Ebola virus. You know, there are some things that are beyond my control, for sure. Again, when you have Aries and Libra, you know, being emphasized like it is right now, it is about us being able to observe what is going on in the world. And then, you know, it is all these things that we're being bombarded with. You know, there's two parts of that. Is, you know, sometimes I think we should just turn off the TV because we're getting so inundated with this information, and it is diminishing our hope and our courage, you know, because we get so overwhelmed with this. But the other part of this is the consciousness raising that full moon eclipse does, you know, to say, well, wow, you know, that's pretty intense over here, and that's very intense over there, and these things are very overwhelming. You know, you have maybe two you know, two things you can do in that. You can continue to be, you know, mesmerized by all that is external. Mm-hmm. Or you can pull it back to say, okay, well, that's pretty overwhelming, and I could die tomorrow. So if I'm going to die tomorrow, let me live it the best I can today. You know, if in the next moment I get run over by the bus or what have you, you know, how can I say that in this moment I was as fully present as I could be for myself? There are some things that can't change. I mean, it's really horrible when you lose your job, you know, 2 days before the rent is due, or, you know, the person you love walks out on you, or, you know, whatever, or you get cancer, or, you know, these kinds of things. You know, we can't suggest that difficult things don't happen. They do. They do. But in times when we are our most challenged are the times when we are our most real, when our hearts are the most open, when we are the most present. And if we understood the creative process better, we would not be creating such pain, such horror, such tragedy. We could be creating more beautiful things for ourselves. But we are put asunder by a collective consciousness that has been going on for far too long. And this is a culling moment for all of that on the planet. Again, I say, you know, sometimes I have clients that come in and say, well, Rose, you know, I've changed, I understood what you said, and I went away and I changed my consciousness, and I understand, and I have this broader vision, but life has, right? And I say, well, yes, that's true, but there are times when the cycles have to finish themselves out. They have to play themselves out. You know, the evolutionary thread has started. The energetic has started, and it has to completely spend itself.
Mm-hmm.
So it may not be possible for us to eradicate, you know, the horrors, the tragedies, the, you know, these things that happen to us personally and happen to us collectively. But for those of us who want to serve, it is really important to come back to center, where we can find source, and within that to recognize that the small moments and the small feats are really the big ones. You know, the kind words that you say to the stranger when you're both standing at the bus stop in the pouring rain, or, you know, those moments. You know, that is, that is raising the collective energy in every one of those little moments. You know, again, we have to recognize that, you know, Stephen Hawking said this a few years ago. I was just recently thinking about An Inconvenient Truth and Al Gore and, you know, all of that, and I remember Stephen Hawking saying, you know, because they're saying, oh, we've got to stop all this, and he said, well, you know, the snowball's already rolling down the hill, and we can't stop it, right? So that's going to have to, our point of being here now is to bear witness to this crossroads in terms of our collective consciousness, and to feed the data banks with our own thought processes and our own, intentions for reprogramming the cosmic computer out there called God, Goddess. Do you understand what I'm getting at? It's a large.
I understand exactly where you're getting at, and yeah. I agree with you totally. And I think that, you know, one of the goals here in this show is we are working primarily with women who serve the divine in some way or another. Most of them serve the goddess, but we also have several rabbis who, you know, serve in the more traditional way. And, you know, I don't care. I think that God doesn't care what you call her. So, you know, my attitude towards it is, you know, it's all the divine, it's all one, and I am part of one, and it is through me that God works, and it is through you and through everyone else, and that if we don't do our job, God is not present here on earth. So,
well, you know, I have to say that that we're all serving, and we're all doing our job, and we're all doing our job all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no degree of separateness there. We just have to do it better.
Yes, but it would be nice if we would do it with more consciousness, I believe, because if we get, I think we go unconscious, and when we go unconscious, we get into this, well, what am I going to have for dinner, and I've got to go and pick up the kids at the soccer, and oh my God, what am I going to do about the fact that I agreed to do a full moon ritual with somebody next week, you know, or tonight, or whatever. And so it's like being a priestess, it expands throughout our entire life, and everything we do is part of being a priestess, in my belief. But sometimes it's going and picking somebody up at the hospital. Sometimes it's baking a cake. So whenever the astrology of what is going on around us affects us, to me, it's like the astrology is like a blueprint or a map that we've been given, that we can look at and we can say, okay, if I see this is coming up, and I know, in other words, it's sort of like if I know that I'm going to have to cross I-5, preferably I'm going to do it on an overpass in a car. But, you know, the point being that I'm not going to go out and run across the street on I-5. If I see that something is coming up in my astrological chart that is, you know, a month, 2 months, 5 months down the road, I feel like one of the things that astrology does for you is it allows you to sort of prepare for those things that are not necessarily expected. How do you feel about that?
Right. You know, and yes, that's absolutely a very good point. The things that we don't know are coming around the corner. To know what the parameters are of that is to be okay with that. You know, there are some times when, you know, Saturn's going to dish on your chart. It's going to be a little bit hard, right? So if we look to work with that energy, then we can put it to constructive use, right? Yeah,
Saturn and I are old friends.
and you know, it's really it's very, very important for us to stay very, very strong and very centered in our own lives. And you know, as I said, serving is sometimes, I think that we're learning to make the change in terms of how we are creating. And this is a very, very large program, and we're, you know, we live in a duality universe, and that is being shown to us so, being demonstrated so blatantly now, I think, with the rise of ISIS, which is, you know, the rise of evil on the planet. You just see what's going on there. You know, that's just, you know, it's like this, you know, disease that is spreading, and it's like what's the word I'm looking for? An epidemic, you know, that is spreading. And while we're looking at that, we've got to now, on the other end of things, really pull up the light in each one of us. And that means for us to create to the maximum of our ability to shine our light. You know, I always say this, to say that the flower in the garden, you know, doesn't diminish itself. You know, it's in its full glory going, I'm beautiful, look at me, I'm beautiful, do you love me? You know, it's an attention getter, you know, it wants to shine. This is what the sun is doing, it's shining, you know, and this is what we have to do to the best of our abilities, is to take that, and if it is cooking a dinner for, you know, the umpteenth gazillion time, you know, the same recipe you've done over and over again, you know, it's for you to you know, to really be present with each one of those processes, no matter how mundane it seems.
Right. At one point, a number of years ago, I was the largest employer of Bhagwan Rajneesh followers in Seattle. I had 35 worked for me whenever we were doing rehabbing of houses. And they were masters at what they did, whether they were master plumbers or master cleaners, it didn't matter. But what we learned was we could never pay them by the hour, because each job was a total meditation into the glory of God, and therefore they did them perfectly, but boy, did they take a long time.
That's kind of an analogy for what we're doing right now, to the glory of God, and boy, is it taken a long time. I love that.
Yeah, well, you know, there's an old saying, you know, that whatever you plan on doing is going to take twice as long and cost twice as much, and I think we're underestimating these days. So
and when we change that philosophy, it'll be different. Let me just also say about the astrology, you know, this eclipse is very big because of this firepower that we have on it, but eclipses, I always say, are like plucking the string of a musical instrument, so they resonate over a period of time. This eclipse, we're already in the throes of it. We've been in the throes of it for the past several weeks on a more intensified level, and we'll continue on here. At the end of the month, on the 23rd, there is a solar eclipse. It is a new moon, and that solar eclipse is 0 degrees Scorpio. It's very potent because Venus is conjunct that eclipse. So here we have a full moon right now, a lunar eclipse that is Aries Libra, and the Libra position, Libra is ruled by planet Venus, which is the catalyst for this right now. And we are working our way through a Venus cycle that began in January of 2014. We're at the halfway mark, or coming to the halfway mark on October 25th, when the Sun and Venus align. Now, when they align, it is a conjunction, but for I've been loosely calling it like a full moon, sun, Venus. Venus and the sun are always traveling together, but this is an illumination piece. It's halfway through the Venus cycle. So the Venus cycle that started in January, Venus was in the sign of sign of Capricorn. And that is, again, Venus is a planet of finding value and meaning, wherever we're going to find value and meaning. With Venus in Capricorn, it is an 18-month cycle in examining existing reality, and developing a structural dynamic that is going to be a springboard, a platform from which we will build. We are coming to this halfway point. The whole year we've had, because of the retrograde earlier in the year with Mars in the sign of Libra, again another Venus-ruled archetype here. Because of its retrograde pattern, we had Mars, which is the desire of the soul, the leading edge of the soul's desires, right here and right now, traveling through Libra all this time. We've had 8 months of retrogrades for the first, through July of 2014. This has been an intensification program in terms of working through relationship dynamics. And I always say the relationship dynamics are me to me, me to you, and me to us. Just all of that. Confronting your existing reality and looking at how am I building it and how does it need to change. At this full moon today, tomorrow, we're at kind of a culminating fruition point with it, and a culminating piece of that, and we can look at that and say, where am I right now? I've been building up all of this, I've experienced, and so on. It is bringing us to a point where whatever it is that we've been working on all this time, we're coming to completion with that. And over this next 2 weeks, we're in a bit of a transition here between that lunar eclipse and the solar eclipse on the 23rd, bringing us to the Venus culminating point on the 25th, the same day that Mercury ends retrograde. All right, and so at 0 degrees, well, Scorpio is an archetype of resurrection. It's an archetype of evolution, right? And so this is a very, very potent eclipse. We are now in a staging platform right here of taking a look at, and this is, that kite position of the sun in Libra is to observe and to listen. If I'm listening, what am I listening with? Am I listening with my head, or am I listening with my heart? Am I listening with my soul? Hopefully we can combine all three of those in actuality, But this is a point, too, what I would say about the person who said, well, I've had a very stressful, awful day. Say, take a pause for just a minute. Okay, breathe. Listen. Look. See. Right. Yeah. Let it play out. Yeah, let it play out.
There was somebody here who was saying that they were having trouble with their video and getting their video started. And someone else answered them back and said, you have to refresh the screen. And I was thinking, it would be really nice if we had a refresh that we could hit on life. That whenever you get stuck in one of those patterns, you just hit Command R and everything resets and it goes back to the way it should be. And it's, that little glitch is gone. I love what you're saying, and I do have another question here. Someone had wanted to know, have you looked at the outer planetary nodes to dig more deeply into the natal chart? And if so, what have you found regarding those nodes?
Yes, I do look at the planetary nodes, and they will give you tremendous information, and they are very, very much worth including in your analysis, because they will fill in the story like nothing else.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I do want to stress that, Rose does do consultations and charts, and so anybody who wants to have their own personal chart looked at or have her to work with she is available, and her website is rosemarcus.com, so it's pretty easy. I'm going to put that up there so everybody can get that.
And let me just also say, if you have an iPhone or anything, rosemarcus.com/astrolink gets you to bypass all the wonderful graphics there that take too long to load up.
And I highly recommend that you do sign up for her newsletter because, like I said, I've been getting it. I frequently print it out and post it up on my wall so that I don't forget what's going on. You know, I mean, it's so easy whenever you've got so much going on that you see. Oh, you say, oh, this, and you go, oh, I got to remember that. On the 14th, there's going to be this aspect going on, and by the 14th, you can't even remember you had a head. So, I post it on my wall, or I'll post it on my computer or beside my computer so that I know what's going on. And, that's something that's been a real help for me, is whenever I realize that it's not just me. It's not, oh, Mercury is retrograde. It's not just me having computer problems. And it's not just me, dealing with this issue of the eclipse or whatever. I forgot what his name was, but there's an Englishman who talks about eclipses being the acupuncture for the world, and how it is a line of acupuncture points that it serves, and that each one of them serves a different meridian and activates a different meridian in the world. And as we move through these eclipses, and then we've got these two of them going on, plus we have this strong blood moon, which is currently going on, and the Raven was talking about it before we got started here, that she's down in Albuquerque where they're doing the balloon festival. And they're going to have a grand ascension tomorrow, and the moon is still going to be up, and it may be still red. So her assignment is to go out and take pictures.
Do you know what a blood moon? I just thought this is such an incredible analogy. Do you know what a blood moon actually is, from an astronomical point of view? It's the way that the sun and the moon are lined up with the moon, that all of the sunrises and sunsets on the Earth are all lit up at the same time, and it forms this halo. Being that the moon reflects that, you get the red from all those sunrises and sunsets. I just think as an analogy for illumination, for all the sunrises and sunsets to be illuminated right now. Isn't that an amazing thing to think about?
I think it's wonderful to think about. One of the things I love is the Google Earth that you can get on your iPhone or on your Android, and you look at it and you can see the line of sunrise and sunset, and you can see the lights of the cities, as it travels, and it's like, kind of like being out in space and looking down on Earth and seeing the way that it looks, and it's such an incredible experience to look at it and see all those lights and realize those are all those millions of people down there. And but the idea of the illumination of the I like
sunset, these portals, so we have access to all this information all at once. Simultaneousness of consciousness, the simultaneousness of the creative force. Wow, it's pretty amazing. I think for those who like to do ritual, or who like to observe in that way, like to affirm, to meditate, I would think that is drawing down some very wonderful, wonderful energy.
No, I know there's a lot of full moon rituals. I think they're going on tonight and tomorrow night. So, find a full moon ritual, and if you can't find one, go out and do your own. Particularly if you can see the moon. Raven, did you have a question you wanted to ask Rose before we get?
I do have a question for you, Rose. So I know you talked about this very briefly, but I really love the concept of people think that astrology is out there. The planets are out there, and they're beaming down this energy, and we're just kind of receiving it. And in some way that's true because that's a macrocosm. But I think what people don't think about is the planets are inside. And I wonder if you could talk about that. You mentioned it briefly, and I was happy because that was exactly what I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah, there's no degree of separation between anything in creation, and we are a reflection of the microcosm reflecting the microcosm and vice versa. Planets don't make us do anything. you know, but we are synchronized to the energies of the universe, and so we're always aligned with them. You know, we're organic. You know, we of course we are. Of course we are.
Yeah. So, as we're coming down towards the end of the show, I have a question here as to a general forecast for the rest of 2014. You know, the Cliff Notes version of what we should be looking for.
The end of October is a go time. You know, into November. And for the Cliff Notes, I suggest that you sign up on my, get my monthly newsletter. You know, I also do another radio show once a month talking about the transits, which I do the podcast on my site. Right now, Mars is in out of bound position until through the beginning of November, I think it is. And that's very intense. So everything is escalated. Everything is on the rise. Everything is expanded. All the volume is up. And so this is a very intense time. Right now it is for us to be recognizing that we are all dealing with something very potent karmically, you know, and our relationships, our circumstances, we're bringing something to culmination. We're at some crossroads now. I said this earlier, for earlier transits in the year, we've come to the intersection, and now we get to, for the first time, go through the intersection over to the other side, depending on the choices that you make in the moment. So if you've been held up, if you know you're dissatisfied with your work or your home circumstances, or you know nothing's been happening, and you've been so-called dished on by the universe and so forth, look to the end of October forward for there to be more opportunity. And opportunity is always available for the taking. You know, it depends on, again, how you can structure your consciousness around that. I say that, you know, you can say, well, I'm coming up empty here, and I say that there's always, always something you can do. Take one step, no matter what it is, you know, and especially when you're in a state of depression or, you know, dealing with things that are very hard, it's very, very difficult for you to see, you know, how any action might make a change for you, or, you know, one small step might not get that, you know, that rent money together or so on. But I say, take the step anyway. You know, one step will lead to another. As a matter of fact, I was complaining to somebody recently about not being able to get, you know, get going, and she was saying, oh yeah, my friend has this one-a-day program, and I'm gonna end with that. I'm gonna say one a day, every day. You know, make a promise to yourself that you're going to do something small, to take a step forward, to make a change, to break a pattern or a rhythm. One small step will get you there, one drop at a time.
Excellent advice. Excellent advice. So tell us what you've got going on in the next few months, and that or anything we might be interested in.
Well, at the moment, I'm writing. I'm working on a book on Chiron, so I'm taking a little hiatus from teaching. The next teaching I will be doing will be I'll be speaking at NORWAC in Seattle in next May. I don't have any other plans outside of that besides my regular monthly column. I write a weekly that's published here for the Georgia Strait in Vancouver, and that's also available online. And I do a once-a-month show, Guiding Stars, with Kristen Fontana, and we talk about the transits for the month ahead. So all that information's on my website. And yes, I am available for private sessions. So keeping busy on many different levels. The teaching will be on a little bit of a hiatus for the moment.
Okay, well, I did want to give you an opportunity to let people know that you are available for private sessions. And
absolutely.
You know, I really appreciate your coming on and sharing your wisdom with us and sharing your knowledge. You know, as I said, I've been impressed by you, and I'm not easy to impress. So you are, you know, really delightful. I thank you so much for being here. And in the last minute or so, did you have anything that you wanted to leave as a last word?
Be brave. Stay hopeful. Stay positive.
That's lovely. Thank you so much. So thank you, and thank all of you for being present. Thank you who've listened in now, and thank you that'll be listening in the future on YouTube. This was Rose Marcus visiting us on A Gathering of Priestesses. My name is Gloria Taylor Brown, and I will be back here next Tuesday evening with my co-host, Catherine Ravenwood, and we are going to be having a woman named Thea Summerdeer. I don't know a lot about her. I know that she's a student of a friend of ours, Linda Starwolf, and she's out of Isis Oasis? No.
Isis Cove?
Isis Cove in North Carolina. And I get them confused. Asheville and Ashland and Isis Cove and Isis Oasis. But I had a conversation with her, and she has a really interesting and unique point of view, and I hope you will all be there and listen in and let us know what you have thought about it. Let us know what you how you liked Rose this evening. I'm sure you'll loved her. And let her know that, sign up for her newsletter, because, you'll benefit far more than she will from that. But have her do your chart. I think that it's worth it. You need to know that information. Like I said, it's kind of like having a road map, letting you know where you're going from here. So thank you all, and good night, and see you next week, same time, same station.